Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Parsons Progress. I'm going to read today some more of my novel. There are no updates really on the property as such. I had a nice weekend. I hope you did. I did have a phone call this morning regarding the water. You know, I was talking about having a borehole. Martin from the company phoned up, and it would appear they've got some plant that has been liberated temporarily that they may be able to utilise at short notice. So he's going to bring his clerk of works on site, presumably this week, just to say what needs to be cleared and done in terms of the land in order to get the plant down. I know it'll certainly mean moving logs about and out of the way, and vehicles, and the Land Rover, of course, will have to be moved. And we'll see how we get on. Anyway, so that's quite exciting. It'd be nice to think that within a fortnight or so, I might even have running water. Not rely on my holy puddle. Anyway, I thought I'd read today, as nothing else has been going on, from my novel. We left John Reith at do you remember he went to that drinks party, didn't he? And he bumped into Lorna. But more importantly, maybe to him, he bumped into Colonel Blenheim, who offered him a horse for a meet of the local hunt. So I thought I'd follow on from there. That was chapter, I believe, 15. And John was in a very good mood when we left him. He went home for a proper drink. So we're on to chapter 16. I'm continuing with these. Not everybody cares for a red novel, but those who do like it appear to like it. So I'm going to continue for now, and it forces me to edit. But I'm catching up rapidly with my edit, so it's going to force me to do more editing, which is, a good thing. So anyway, I hope you're all well and you're sitting comfortably. I'm going to have to severely sort of edit this chapter. So what I'm going to do is possibly conflate a couple of chapters, or maybe not. No, they're both in this one, aren't they? And I'm just moving on quickly through it. Let's have a look. Because it gets rather saucy in places, and I'm not certainly going to sit here and read that out. You'd have to have the novel for that. A certain amount of passion. Let's just leave it there. Let's just park it there, viewers. But it's a modern-ish novel as such, and passion is part of life, is it not? And therefore it is included in the novel. I'm not writing an Enid Blyton famous five go to Hunter's Moon. I used to like the famous five, did you? They never read maps, they always pored over maps. Did you notice that? And they never had just some lemonade, they had lashings of lemonade. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Let me sort of go on. I may have to edit as I go on in order to self-edit. This will be the first time that Father John has ever self-edited. Okay, here we go. Chapter 16. Well, I thought that went swimmingly, said Patrick Jessup, removing his tie in his bedroom mirror. Yes, I suppose it did, replied Lorna, disinterestedly. She was lying on Patrick's bed and removing her shoes. Lorna would often stay over on such occasions, but they both strictly observed the house rules. He had his room, and she had hers, irrespective of what time she left Patrick's. It loaned respectability to a relationship that was without benefit of clergy. Despite her angst concerning such social gatherings, she admitted to herself quietly that the combination of Christmas magic and the best part of a bottle of champagne had left her feeling in somewhat better humour. Now, more agreeably comfortable, she allowed herself to recline on Patrick's bed. She loved Patrick's room, the combination of the rich green handmade wallpaper after William Morris and the dark mahogany furniture minded her of times past, a time of sea travel and of luxury hotels. It was not a young man's room, but then Patrick never acted like a young man. He had been middle-aged since junior school. When Lorna was younger, she was attracted by his maturity and seriousness. She liked the fact that he appeared earnest. Patrick turned off the bedroom light, leaving only the soft and shallow light cast from the bedside table. "Budge over," he said in a matter-of-fact way. She obliged as she felt his body move against hers, dressed now in his customary flannelette pyjamas. Lorna smiled inwardly at his boyish ways at bedtime rituals. She half expected him to produce a hot water bottle and a teddy bear. Lorna was still wearing her dress and lay on the top of the sheets. The scent of faded cologne greeted her as she felt the warmth of Patrick's body. The musk complemented perfectly the decor of his room, but more importantly matched the emergence of her mood. Lorna was beginning to give way to a customary tide of almost mindless passion. A trickle initiated by mild intoxication had now become a full torrent of metered desire. But it was only that, not love. And I shall cut the next few paragraphs. You'll just have to guess what happened. And we move back to John now in the following chapter. Excuse the windows, there's a hell of a wind blowing today, so they're rattling. John poked his fire. He had an inordinately large glass of Saint-Emilion in his hand and his favourite LP on his record deck. The long case clock struck 12. Major loved it when his master was tipsy. Reith loved it too. Before he danced his way back into the kitchen for a refill, he stopped temporarily to light a cheroot from the fireplace, and with this now firmly clenched between his lips, he decided he was the lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin, and began to play the imaginary instrument to the strains of Stairway to Heaven. God, I'm happy, he thought to himself. In part his euphoria was the result of having survived a drinks party, part due to his shadowy tryst with the blessed Lorna, and partly due to his introduction to the good Colonel Blenheim. But mostly it was because he was the best part through his bottle of claret. Not only was he to be mounted in the hunting field next Wednesday, but he was about to get first dibs at the Colonel's attic. He began to ruminate, having now exhausted his musical interlude, and returned to the leather chair. Will my hunting jacket still fit? Oh, who cares? Am I hunting fit? I can only fall off. John had not ridden since he left the army in Wiltshire this week. He was marvellous routine. In Wiltshire his week was routinely marvellous. In season he shot over Salisbury Plain on Saturdays. On Tuesdays he hunted with a military pack, and in the evenings he had use of a beat on the River Wyly. He was an average shot, and the hounds often didn't find. As for the elusive Brownie, they invariably missed his fly. Thus the wildlife on Salisbury Plain was unusually safe where Reith was concerned. He didn't have an issue with field sports, despite his appalling luck. He realised the countryside required management and was best served by the local shoot, hunt or angling club. Reith was no average horseman, however. He had started out originally with the dream of becoming a successful jockey. Even as a teenager, it was clear he would be too big for the flat, but there was a fighting chance he might be okay over the sticks. He was tall, but wiry. Sadly, his trainer did not agree, and John left Newmarket without signing his indentures. Fortunately, the cavalry had no such size or height restrictions, and the recruiting sergeant in Harrogate had no problems in persuading the young Reith that equitation in the military would prove a much more viable option. Bloody liar, John thought to himself. The sergeant had omitted to inform the youthful Reith that the cavalry had been mechanised since the Second World War, and apart from the household cavalry and Royal Horse Artillery, the rest of the army had nothing to do with horses. Thus John found himself as a young trooper in the 9th 12th Lancers, aboard an armoured vehicle, and not the thoroughbred he had previously envisaged. Not to be outdone, John set out and discovered the regimental stables at Bombington. He chanced to meet a trooper who had been assigned to stable duties, who rejoiced in the name of Mad Max. John discovered that he had been so named on account of the manner in which he drove the armoured reconnaissance vehicles. During and since training, he had managed to write off 1 scimitar and 2 scouts and 3 Land Rovers. His squadron commander was adamant that Max should be kept away from the tank park and had him reassigned to stable duties. So Max and Reith struck up a friendship. John was able to ride out and exercise the polo ponies, and Max enjoyed catching up on the squadron gossip from John. All this appeared to refer to someone else, thought John, as he returned to his chair. He had taken off his tie and jacket and warmed his stocking feet on the hearth. The logs cracked happily in the grate as John luxuriated in the velvet liquid passing past his lips. Rich undertones of chocolate and vanilla spices mixed delicately on his palate, and his satisfaction with life and his surroundings became palpable. Temporarily, his hunger for company was appeased. The claret had taken away the hard edges of existence and replaced them, at least in that moment, with a more honed and softened reality. Lorna tiptoed down the short upper hallway that separated Patrick's room from her own. She held her shoes in one hand and opened and closed her bedroom door carefully. After undressing and putting on a large toweling robe that was lying on the bed, she searched for her bag for a cigarette. As graceful as a leopard stalking her midnight prey, she moved towards the bedroom window, opened it and sat upon its commodious sill. The cool winter breeze was a welcome relief to the stifling heat of the ancient radiators, and she allowed it to wash over her as the warmth of her recent passion abated. Lorna took long, steady draws of the cigarette, and she allowed her head to fall back against the windowsill. She was bathed in the blue-white hue of a full moon, a hunter's moon. Instead of the quiet contentment she normally felt on such occasions at Thornbury Towers, she was aware of hollowness. Her mind felt numb, her body unpossessed. She took another draw on her cigarette, sighed, and then extinguished it in the glass of water that stood on the nearby dresser. She shut the window as quietly as she had opened it, and withdrew to her bed. As she pulled the satin sheets up around her neck, she turned to the wall, and her thoughts turned to Wednesday. Then she would be borne by her faithful steed into the hunting field. Then she would be consumed and possessed. The thrill of the chase, the presence of danger, the sensation of being utterly alive. Lorna drifted down into a deep, dark sleep of mist and shadow and strangers. Ooh. So there ends that chapter. Well, that was a conflation of chapters, really, because I missed out quite a bit from the previous chapter on account of its sensuality. We can't have that, can we? Well, there we go, friends. I'm going to leave it there because I have nothing to report and I've got nothing to say. And I'm doing it very quickly because Monty is in the caravan causing mayhem. and I don't want to leave him unattended too long. But anyway, hopefully we'll be back with a longer video tomorrow, but I thought I'd better just chime in as it's Monday and I didn't do a video yesterday. But there we have it. Yes. John is in a buoyant mood, it would appear, but not so Lorna. The story develops. And with that, I hope I will go and develop a nice cup of coffee now, and I think smoke on my pipe. With that, God bless you, God keep you, may his face shine upon you, my wee parish, and I may see you tomorrow. All the best. Father John, signing out. Cheerio.